So are you currently working in a toxic environment? And if so, how do you learn how to thrive in it? Well, today I'm going to read you a short story, and we're going to describe what type of environment he was working in, but more importantly, what did he do? And we're going to flesh out the things that he did so that you and I, when we recognize the toxic environments that we work in, how to respond. Now, I'm going to be reading from the book of Daniel. You probably know this story, Daniel, the 6th chapter. This is about Daniel going to the lion's den, but we're going to read verses 1 through 5. And I want you to hear what was happening, and we're going to parse out some things for us today, because the groups that I'm working with currently, they're all at crossroads, right? I'm working with mid to senior level leaders who have either been promoted within the last 3 years, or they're in some type of major career transition. And what they've been telling me is that they're at a crossroad, and some of these environments are very, very toxic. And so how can we learn to build out these strategies so that you and I, we can thrive? So let's read. And I'm going to be reading from the NLT. And it says, Darius, the meeting decided to divide the kingdom into 120 provinces. And he appointed high officers to rule over each province. The king also chose Daniel and 2 other administrators to supervise the high officers and to protect the king's interests. So as we can see, Daniel and 2 other administrators, they have been assigned to be over these 120 provinces. So in reality, each one of them has 40 provinces, right? Now the third verse says, Daniel soon proved himself more capable than all the other administrators and high officers. Because of Daniel's great ability, the king made plans to place him over the entire empire. Now, I want you to know, Daniel was able to separate himself because of his great ability. Now, what was his great ability? Was it just because he was a great people person? Did he have a great personality? Did he speak well? Right? See, all of these things we can assume, but as we hear in this story, you and I, we can separate ourselves by how we work, even in the environments that we work in. So it doesn't really matter what type of environment we work in. What matters is how do we respond and how we bring life and leadership skills to these environments. This is where things get tricky, because this is what happens with you and I, right? People start seeing you separate yourselves in terms of how you do things, the way you do things, but more importantly, the why you do things, and you will be attacked. So the most important thing is for us is don't focus on the fact that we're going to be attacked. Focus on what we do, how we do it, and more importantly, why we do it. The 4th verse reads, it says, Then the other administrators and high officers began searching for some fault in the way Daniel was handling government affairs. Don't you know that? People are looking for ways to find faults in what you do and how you do it. That's a toxic environment. I don't care what you say. If you're looking for trying to figure out what am I doing wrong, that's toxic. And I've worked in some environments like that. And chances are you probably working in an environment like that right now. But what happens after that? It says, but they couldn't find anything to criticize or condemn him. They couldn't find anything. Can people find something to criticize about you? Can they find things in your life and my life about what they can condemn us about? Now listen, none of us are perfect. All of us have things that we may have done wrong, etc. But guess what? If you corrected those things, keep moving forward. But I love this. They couldn't find anything. And so you know what happens when people can't find anything? They try to create something. And that's what they did. It says he was faithful. These are the 3 things that Daniel was. He was able to rise above what they were doing. And this is what you and I, we have to learn how to do. It says he was faithful, he was always responsible, and he was completely trustworthy. Those are 3 things that you and I, we can do right now. So if you are in a toxic environment, what things can you and I do? Number 1, we can be faithful. What do you mean? Well, if we said we're going to do something, let's do it. Let's be committed to what we say we're going to do. Let's be committed to our roles and responsibilities. Number 2, he was always responsible. You know what that tells me? He showed up. That's the thing about most important right now. You and I, we need to learn how to just show up. You know, one of my coaches, he told me one time, he says, when you're on time, you're late, right? If you're on time, you are literally late. On time means you need to show up early. Show up early and stay late. And I can promise you that's what Daniel probably did. And last, he was completely trustworthy. So when someone gave him a responsibility, when the king gave him responsibility, he saw it through. And he could trust in what Daniel said. That's how you and I, we can thrive in these toxic environments. Listen, I know sometimes we can get caught up in people trying to set traps for us and trying to be against us and trying to investigate us. But what I'm reading in this story, Daniel did not waste his time, his energy, his attention focusing on what people were trying to do against him. He was focused on his task at hand. And that's how he was able to rise above everyone else, right? If you and I want to be outstanding, we have to stand out. So how are you going to stand out when people start trying to investigate and trying to condemn and trying to criticize everything that you do, everything what you stand for, as a matter of fact, who you are as a person and as a leader? Daniel is showing us today how to thrive in a toxic environment. What else happened after that? So they concluded, all of these administrators and high officers, since they couldn't find anything, what did they do? So they concluded our only chance of finding grounds for accusing Daniel will be in a connection with the rules of his religion. Now, you know it's a personal attack when people go from, well, you know what? They're crossing their T's and dotting their I's and all of the work that they're doing. Let's take it personal now. Let's take it to his religion. Let's take it to what does he say he truly believes? Listen, this here is a really toxic environment. But the most important thing is I'm impressed with how Daniel responded to it. So for you and I, how are we going to respond to our toxic environment? Are you going to spend your time, effort, and energy focusing on what people are saying about you? Focusing on they're trying to condemn you? Focusing on the fact that everybody's talking about you? Focusing on the fact that everyone is against you? Are you going to spend that time focusing on that? Or are you going to spend your time focused on being trustworthy, being responsible, being faithful? Because that's what Daniel did. And I'm telling you, it may be 2024, no matter what year it is. If you and I want to thrive in the environment that we're working in that is unsafe and we feel unheard and we feel unsupported, we feel all of those things, we need to do it the way Daniel did. Daniel trusted in his God. Daniel trusted in his principles. Daniel trusted in why he was at the table. And as a matter of fact, they were plotting against him while he was getting a promotion. I want you to know everyone is not for you because you're going to get a promotion. Go ahead and accept that fact right now. But don't focus on the fact that everyone is against you. Continue focusing on why you're getting this promotion and keep the main thing the main thing. So based on what I'm reading in this story, Daniel is giving us a blueprint of how to thrive in a toxic environment. Listen, I want you to hang around because this is part 1 and we're going to be recording part 2. Because I can't tell you the whole story, but more importantly, I want to chop it up for us so that we can think about how are we going to thrive in our toxic environment. As I shared earlier, my main thing right now is working with these mid to senior level leaders who have at least probably been promoted within the last 3 years, or they're at a crossroad. Right? They have a major transition where it's a career change or a transition in a role or retirement or no matter what it is. But you're going to come to this crossroad to where you got to decide what you're going to do. Are you going to be like Daniel or are you going to be like all of these people who are against Daniel? I want to be like Daniel. I want to thrive. In order for me to do that, I have to stay focused and trust God and continue to make sure that my integrity that he's blessed me with, to focus on the things that I can control. And what is it, the one thing that I can control? How I respond. That's what Daniel is telling us today. So listen, I want to encourage you no matter where you are, You focus on how you can respond. Focus on what you can control, right? Focus on what you can think, because our thoughts influences what we do, our behavior. Let's not be like all of these other people who are trying to plot and condemn and criticize. No, as we keep reading the story, we know what happened to them, but we know what happened to Daniel. We're still talking about Daniel today, all because of how Daniel responded. So you and I, let's continue to thrive in our toxic environment. Don't focus on the environment, focus on what we can do. So listen, I appreciate you watching this video. If something has been said in this video that's going to help you, like it, share it, and definitely feel free to subscribe to this channel, because we're going to continue to create content to help you at those crossroads wherever you may be. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.